دكتور
we'd like to welcome you with us, sir.
It's my pleasure to be here.
So Islam in one way or another at the West is some kind of synonymous to terrorism. Each Muslim is considered to be a terrorist until proven otherwise. How can you face this dilemma in your discourse when presenting Islam for non-Muslims?
Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain. Amma ba'd. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. This question that you asked is one of the most common questions asked by the non-Muslims regarding the religion of Islam. As far as the media that is blaming that Muslims are terrorists and Islam is the religion of terrorism, first we have to understand what is the meaning of the word terrorist. Terrorist, by definition, means a person who causes terror. Now, many a times, two different labels are given to the same individual for the same activity. I'd like to give an example that before India got its freedom, India was ruled by the Britishers, and there were many Indians who were fighting for the freedom of the country. These Indians, by the Britishers, they were called as terrorists. But we common Indians, we call them as freedom fighters. Same people, same activity, but two different labels. If you agree with the view of the Britishers, that the Britishers had a right to rule over India, then you would call these people as terrorists. But if you agree with the view of the common Indians, that the Britishers came to India to do business, they have no right to rule over us, then you would call these people as freedom fighters. You would call them as patriots. Same people, same activity, but two different labels. And many times, when I address the Indian press, and when they ask me the same question, that why are Muslims terrorists? So I ask them a counter question, that do you believe Bhagat Singh was a terrorist? And they tell me no. I said, why? At that time, before India got its freedoms, that is more than 70 years back, the Britishers called Bhagat Singh as a terrorist. Do you believe he's a terrorist? And they say no. I say, why? No, we know the background, we know the history, that these people actually were freedom fighters. We do not agree Bhagat Singh is a terrorist. I tell them, even I do not agree Bhagat Singh is a terrorist, because even I know the Indian history. So the same Britishers who you did not believe more than 70 years back, today, when the same Westerners, the same Britishers are calling Muslims as terrorists, then why are you believing in them? And they start laughing. Why these double standards? Today, if the media, or if the Westerners, or if the Britishers are calling the Muslims as terrorists, why don't you do a research? How you do not agree with them, what they said more than 70 years back, why do you agree with them today? And if you see in the history, you will find many such examples. If you read the history of the American Revolution in 1775, in the 18th century, when many of the Americans were fighting for the freedom, and the Britishers were ruling America, at that time the Britishers, they called George Washington as terrorist number one. Later on, when America gets its freedom, the first president of USA is appointed as George Washington. Imagine, terrorist number one of the world becomes the president of USA. So what we realize, that whoever is in power, whatever label they give, it gets stuck to it. We have this example even in South Africa. We know the previous white apartheid government, when they ruled South Africa, they had imprisoned Nelson Mandela in Robben Islands for more than 25 years. Later on, when South Africa got its freedom, the same person, Nelson Mandela, he becomes the president of the new South Africa. And later on, he gets the Nobel Prize for Peace. Imagine, the person who was previously called as terrorist number one in the world, becomes the president of South Africa. And later on, he is given the Nobel Prize for Peace. Not that he was bad and he became good. For the same activity for which he was imprisoned, later on he gets a prize, the Nobel Prize for Peace. So what we realize, whoever is in power, whatever label they give, it gets stuck. What does the Quran say in Surah Hujurat, chapter 49, verse number 6? Whenever you get the information, you check it up before you pass it on to the next person. So when we get this information about that the Muslims are terrorists, and if you do a survey for the last 200 years, before 9/11, you'll hardly find any Muslims that have been blamed as terrorists. Hardly. In percentage-wise, you'll find most of the assassination done of various presidents, most of the attacks, most of the killings have been done by non-Muslims. Muslims are a very negligible small percentage. So what we realize, it is after 9/11 that when they call war for peace, actually I believe it is not war for peace, it is war on peace. And Islam comes the root word salam, which means peace. So the media today is having war on peace, on Islam. So this, I believe, is more of a misconception. What the media does, they pick up black sheep of the Muslim community and they portray as though they're exemplary Muslim. I do agree. There are black sheep in the Muslim community. The media picks them up and they portray them as Muslims. So I believe the media, purposely to malign Islam, they pick up the black sheep of the Muslim community and they portray as though they're exemplary Muslim, and they say that every Muslim is not a terrorist, but every terrorist is a Muslim, just to malign the name of Islam.